except they were accepted by the authorities temporarily. I guess so, yeah. Are you ready? Okay, welcome very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome the program scholar and a writer and an artist and a bon vivant, as one can see the way he's out and retire in an attire that is very, very catching. Who does your clothes? You think maybe we should let a cat out of the bag who your tailor is?
Well, my wife used to.
Oh, really?
She was quite an artist.
Bennett KremenI, right? Is
Yes,
that it? Yeah, he's an all-around artist of a very high quality. Obviously, from the conversation that we've had before the camera started, he's a very interesting fellow. He's written a book called, let me show it, in fact, right here at the outset for the beginning, The Performance. So you can see it there. This is a book that he's written, and we can talk about this. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I may be wrong, he's a dyed-in-the-wool Republican supporter of the right wing. I'm making a joke.
Over my dead body.
Anyway, so he's there. Anyway, Bennett, welcome so much to Conversations and so forth. Let's talk about you. You got a couple years under your belt, but I understand you're younger than I didn't think anyone was, but I mean, you're almost my age. And
yeah, I'm a youngster compared to you.
You're looking good. What do you eat? Do you eat some sort of a special diet to look so good? You're 82, right?
82.
I'm 83. So I'm here to tell you
God
that
bless
extra
you.
year. Yeah. So anyway, you're looking great.
You just keep staying ahead of me like that for another 20 years or so.
So listen, explain yourself, young man, or something. Why don't we talk a little bit about you? You're a New Yorker, and you're a bon vivant, and you're one who's interested in politics and so forth. Why don't you share a little bit? And you're a writer. And you're also an artist.
I've done art. I was an art editor at the old Holiday magazine.
Oh yeah, I remember Holiday.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
And my wife was quite a fine artist. So.
Was she really?
Yes.
Figurative or what?
Both.
Yeah.
She could do everything.
Yeah.
Her name was Jeanette Arnone.
Yeah.
Instead, Italian background.
Yeah, right.
She had it.
A lot of Italians had the knack for painting.
They had
a lot of good stuff
guy
came out of
named
that
Michelangelo,
country.
guys like that.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah, but he was like a schlep, you know. I mean, he didn't know how to, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, like that.
She had that.
You're New York born and raised in that?
I actually was raised in Chicago.
Okay.
The old west side of Chicago.
I don't know Chicago hardly at all.
Okay.
They had a great museum there. Field Museum it's called.
Yes.
It's fantastic. They
Excellent
have a
museum.
coal mine that you can go down into.
Yes,
they've in Chicago. It's a
replicated a coal mine.
Was it? It was a good town to come up with, or so forth, or.
Chicago has a character. I mean, it's not just another big town in America. Chicago is a distinct place. It had, a lot of great writers have come from there, and great political movements have.
You got The Jungle was written.
The
about
Jungle
that.
was written there.
That was
Upton Sinclair.
Upton Sinclair was a major work, wasn't
right.
it? Had a major effect upon the social fabric.
Yes.
Because the stockyards were disgusting.
They were terrible.
They really were. Yeah.
So that was one thing. They had many other things. The Haymarket riots.
Yeah.
The famous Pullman strike.
Yeah. Right.
All American history. Evolved out American labor history, American economic history evolved out of a lot of things that happened in Chicago. So Chicago is a
so what was the family
meaningful
setting?
place.
What was the family setting for yourself? I mean, what was it? What was your family setting?
Well, my family, they were immigrants.
Immigrants from?
From Eastern Europe.
Eastern. What part? Do you know?
Actually, they were Russian-speaking Ukraine.
Okay, right. Boy, that's a hot part of the world.
Yeah, definitely hotter than ever now.
Is there a language involved with that or not?
Well, she spoke Russian.
Who, your mother?
Yeah, my mother and my father was from Odessa.
Did you pick up any of the Russian at all? Can you fit it into your writing in that or not?
In this book, I have a Russian character.
Do you really? Yeah.
Anyskaya Duborovic. In this,
boy, that's Russian, all right. Yeah,
in
right.
this novel.
Yeah, show the book. Or did I show it? Or do we show it? Yeah. Yeah, that's really yeah.
It's available on Amazon.
Yeah,
if
and
anybody-
there's a review of that book that is sterling that I read last
Yeah,
night.
it was
A really good review.
Very fortunate.
And
to
you've
get
written a number of other things.
Yes.
Or when did you come to New York, as it were? Or where did you go to school in Chicago, or what?
Well, I went to public school in Chicago.
Yeah.
I had 1 year of college at the University of Illinois in Chicago.
Okay.
Then I went to school in Ohio, a place called Antioch College.
Oh my God, I was at Antioch.
You remember
Antioch's a great school.
I was.
It
still
is a
is.
great school.
Yeah,
Antioch. I was down there.
Great education.
I was down there. That was a leading venue for a certain liberal and very important and creative idea of education, if I'm not mistaken. It was a major leader
You're
in
not
terms
mistaken.
of education the way it ought to be.
Absolutely, yes.
Very, very permissive.
Permissive yet disciplined.
Yeah, right,
They
right,
were able to combine
Yeah.
something. Very few places have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Freedom and hard work.
Yeah, right.
Not just freedom and laying around getting stoned all the time.
Yeah, right.
Freedom
Yeah.
of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of how you want to live
That's
your life.
progressive, very progressive.
very
very progressive.
Right, but at
And
the
it's-
same time,
yeah.
they produce outstanding scientists,
Yes.
highly disciplined
Yeah,
writers,
right.
and scholars.
You're quite right. That's
They
true.
combined the two of them. That's why they were so great.
Yeah. Do you went there as an undergraduate?
Yes.
Like I think I did a summer session there or something. I did doctorate work in the geography and everything. But we were down there doing stuff like that. I was very impressed with it, And that's a major school.
Rightfully.
How did you get to there? Did you get to? What about the younger life when you were younger in Chicago? Chicago is also thought of as being. You had a lot of tough guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
tough town.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a reputation.
Oh, yeah.
that
I
way.
grew up in the toughest
Did you have
of
to-
that tough
did
town.
you have to get
the west side of Chicago.
Did you ever have to get in what they call like a fist fight?
Oh, many of them.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
I never had a fist fight in all my life.
Well, good. Who
Never.
needs
I
fist
never
fight?
did. I never had any fight.
I
But-
had them.
Did you ever box or anything?
I did a little boxing, but it just was street fighting.
But you had people who would have street fighting.
Yes.
That must be pretty traumatic, really.
Well, let me tell you why.
I've never hit anybody or been hit.
Well, a lot of the world does hit each other.
I know.
It's a part of, unfortunately, our lives. And
How can it be that I never did? So many people have had that as part of their life. Males. Let's just say males, for instance. They have fights all the time as part of growing up, like people think. Oh, there's parts of town or parts of a city or part of a country where that seems to be in vogue or something. People doing fist fights, men.
yeah, there are certain areas where it's more prevalent than others.
What is the breakdown on that? I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, I don't think that ever occurred where I lived. I don't remember ever getting in a fist fight.
Well, you probably had very nice parents.
I did. I
They're
had one
solid,
of the best.
good parents.
I had what was probably the
And tried to
I
create
had,
a...
without a doubt, I had the best mother in the history of the universe. Okay, that's important.
All right.
Yeah.
So she created
was
an
re-
environment where you didn't have
Yeah.
to do that stuff. Good
Right.
for your mom.
Yeah. But is there something to be said for the tough life that it brings out certain kinds of survival tactics or something in a very harsh and cruel world kind of view of the. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
My answer-
Street cred or
Right.
something it's
Yeah.
called, right?
My answer to that, Harold, is sometimes life gets rough.
Yeah.
Wars happen,
Yeah.
depressions
They're
happen.
horrible. Yeah.
Civil wars happen.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going through something we don't know where it's going to lead
You
politically.
mean about with
Trump
Court
and the
everything?
Russian
Yeah, right, yeah,
investigation
yeah.
and this
What do you think?
Supreme Court guy who rapes, allegedly, rapes women. That's out there. So a little bit of street cred, as you say, when you encounter that kind of stuff, is not bad to have.
I get that. I may be wrong and everything, but I get that impression he's like a bully boy. In my way, that's his attitude.
You saw how he he poked his finger at the senator's question. They had the right to
well,
question
that may
him.
be just somebody who's really very aggressive. Aggressive. A lot of your leaders are aggressive. They have to be aggressive.
Yeah, but they don't rape people. And allegedly, I add allegedly, they don't allegedly rape people or engage in gangbangs.
Oh.
Whether he did or didn't is up to the FBI now.
But you got all these
I hope
guys
they
in
do their
Chicago. You got all
job.
these guys in Chicago going around shooting each other.
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. Isn't there a lot of that there, inordinate amount?
The neighborhood I grew up in was Al Capone's neighborhood.
All right. Al Capone was a pretty tough
neighborhood.
guy.
That was
there
where
was
I grew up.
Tough stuff going
Very
on.
tough guy.
Yeah.
And I had dyslexia when I was a kid.
Did you really?
I didn't know how to read.
Yeah.
I dropped out of school.
You did.
So where could I go? Where could I be accepted? You know, a dummy. There was no diagnosis for it in that era. If you were like that, you were a dummy.
Did they
So I was a dummy. Where do dummies go? They hang around the pool hall with the bad guys.
Were you good at pool?
Yeah, I got pretty good at it.
Yeah. Okay. Did you run a table and everything like that?
Once in a while.
Could you make $1 or $2 or something?
A little bit.
Did you have to con somebody to do it?
Well, I wasn't.
Did you have to get survival skills?
Wasn't the greatest at it, but I did a little bit of it. Yeah.
But you had a bit of a hard scrabble, was it? Or
there
no?
was
Was the family warm and welcoming?
The family. You see, I couldn't do what the family wanted me to do. My
What the
family
family
was
want you to
upperly
do?
mobile.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters were all going to college.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. I didn't know how to read. And there was no diagnosis for it at that time, Harold. The only diagnosis at that time was a dummy.
Yeah.
I was the family
you were
dummy.
But really, you were maybe too smart. No, it might be you were too smart. Sometimes you're called a dummy, but it's because you're too smart about what they want you to be smart
So
at.
I had to go where the dummies were, and the street corners and the pool hall. They didn't care where I knew how to read or not. They had other criteria to judge people and to, acknowledge them or not acknowledge them. So for a while I did that. Fortunately, I got out of it.
Yeah.
I did, through great struggle, learn how to read, went to college, and ended up a writer.
Yeah, you were a writer, a very good writer. But there's a term called street cred.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or that's where you know how to get along.
Right. Street
in a
credibility.
Tough world, right? Like that, right?
Cred from credibility.
Yeah, right. Like that kind of thing. Yeah.
No, street cred's not a bad thing to have.
Yeah.
I've used it. To this day, I use it.
You think it's a good thing to have in terms of getting along in the world?
Yes.
You think it's essential to get along in a successful way,
well,
rather than just be a clerk or something. You could lead a very passive life if you wanted, but if you rub somebody wrong, or they got all these movies about criminals and things, like mafia and stuff.
All over.
Did that happen in Chicago or in the Chicago you knew?
I told you.
Were you in that environment?
Yes, I was.
Wow, you got a lot.
It's in this book.
Yeah, right.
I describe it.
It's called The Performance.
I describe it in this book.
I know,
in detail.
I saw the reviews of that book by a very, very good reviewer, and it was just absolutely stunningly affirmative of this book. So tell me a little bit about it. It's just come out. You've written other books.
Oh, yes.
Now, what are some of the others? And let's talk about this. I couldn't believe that how gracious that review was of The Performance.
Wonderful. He's a good writer.
Yeah.
Bill
the writer
Banyan.
of the review.
Yeah.
Right.
I wrote him a note. I said, "You leave me speechless."
Yeah, right.
When I read that review.
Well, that's the way I felt too. When I read it. So
God bless Bill Banyan.
Yeah, but you've written other things and everything.
Yes.
And you like to write. You're a good writer, and you write on the human condition.
I've written for freelance Sunday pieces for the New York Times, The Nation, the Old Village Voice, Holiday Magazine, Dissent Magazine.
You're a real New York City character.
I think.
But out of Chicago.
Right.
But you belong in New York.
Yeah,
I would say,
a lot of people.
Don't you think New York's a great place?
Oh, fabulous place.
Best town in the world.
Love New York.
I can't believe any place could be as good as New York City.
We'll go into that, Harold. Something's happening in New York now that we have to pay attention to.
Okay,
but
we'll
get into that
as
we get into our conversation.
Remember, what's the name of the guy that what's the name you used to talk with all the time? The guy that was a friend of your roommate. The guy on the telephone, on the radio. I'm talking to our director now.
Danny Darrow?
Danny Darrow's guy that he used to be with. Who was the guy that was on the radio or on television? Well, anyway, Danny Darrow he's a guy. He's a great guy. He's still about and everything. and he's just got showbiz people. Did you hang out with showbiz
Oh yeah,
people?
sure I do.
I think showbiz
Oh, a lot of
people-
fun.
I think they are.
Oh
Showbiz
yeah,
people,
they're a gas. They're
yeah,
a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
a
there
lot
was
of fun. Well, you know a lot of those.
I
I've been
do.
at parties at your house where folks like that are there.
Yeah, I know a lot of. I'll use the term loosely, characters.
Yes.
But I think people no character is used sometimes as somebody like something that's negative, but character is also something that's very positive.
Of course.
If you've got some some reason there.
What
other
a
than
dull
just,
life it would be without some characters
oh
around.
my gosh! Yes.
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
You look so good. Who does your tailoring? I mean, who's your tailor?
Like I said, my wife was a fine artist.
Oh, yeah.
She taught me a few things.
Oh well, they can. Yeah.
She taught me a few things.
Anyway, you've done that, and you've been in New York for a long time.
Oh yeah. After I left Antioch, I came to New York.
Did you do a degree there or something?
I got a bachelor's degree there.
Antioch was a great place. It's in Ohio somewhere, isn't it?
In Ohio,
Yeah,
Yellow Springs, Ohio.
I was there for Yellow Springs. I remember.
Little town.
I went there for a summer session. Yeah.
Wonderful place. So after that, I came to New York because I wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
But I was
you are a writer, no?
Well, at that time, I had to still was learning how to read. I mean, it took, because
you
I
had
had
a hard
this
time learning how to read.
Oh, very hard time.
Was that something psychological or something?
Well, dyslexia is maybe a slight disturbance neurologically.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You can be brilliant. You can be a genius
No, I understand.
and still be a dyslexic.
Yeah, I understand. I don't even know what it is for sure. What is it? Things get out of sync.
Inability to fasten words to written images. So you'll see a word, like a dyslexic will see a word like dog, and he'll say, "Oh God." He'll reverse it. Something in the brain chemistry does a little number.
Makes it hard to read a big
so
novel.
it gets very
you try to
hard to read anything.
I know how to read some of those.
But you can get over
Russian
it.
novels.
But you can get over it, Harold.
Okay.
The brain is plastic. The brain can change. It's never too old to grow and learn.
Yeah.
Never too old, and you can overcome all kind of incredible stuff. If I overcame dyslexia to become a professional writer, let me tell you, it's like
that is something of a feat.
What?
You should write a book about that.
Well,
or they could make a film about that.
I will.
Why doesn't somebody come and make a film out of your life? I mean, wouldn't you be the main character? That would be your story would be very interesting if they could get to it. Don't you think?
Hey, listen.
Don't you think your life has been very, very interesting? It sounds to me like it was.
Well, I
mean, challenging.
I don't like,
but also interesting.
I'm against egoism at this point, and we see it in the White House.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that. Look at me, the greatest, the best. It's been an unusual life, absolutely, and it's probably worth. I will be writing. I am writing a series of short stories, in which I'm covering.
You've done short stories.
Yeah, I do those. Yes.
Yeah.
I am covering a lot of that in my next book. But
when did
it's a very, very, like, the important thing is I've learned from it.
Yeah.
I've been in different environments. If I describe the West Side of Chicago, Al Capone neighborhood environment,
you knew that.
I also was in an upwardly mobile family.
Yeah.
And
you had an upwardly
all
mobile
of education, so I knew this world, I knew that world. I came to New York. I learned, got involved with the artistic world. Got involved, we've talked about that. My wife was an artist, and I was broke at one time, and I used some of my old Chicago background, went up to Alaska, worked on the pipeline.
I was in
Alaska
Alaska.
Pipeline.
I spent time in Alaska.
It's quite a place.
I went up there the year it became a state.
What a
Do
place.
you remember that?
Where?
But the year it became a state must have been 1958 or something like that, when it became a state.
Harold, I don't know a more beautiful place in the world
It's
than Alaska.
gorgeous.
I mean, physically gorgeous.
Yeah, but I passed it on to you a little bit. I went down there because I'm sort of like push the envelope. I've done a lot of things, but I went there one summer with a friend of mine. Drove there, and he was really reasonable. Anchorage, and he got a job doing art and articles at the local newspaper. And I said I wanted to go to Alaska to understand and commune with nature. I'd read some Thoreau.
Yep.
and some of that kind of stuff. So I said, I'm going to live with nature. This is such a beautiful place. They got blueberries there. You could put a jacket under a blueberry bush and shake it. You could have blueberries to last forever.
Lots of blueberries.
And everything's big. Everything is big. The crops are all really big because you got sunlight all the time in the summer in there, and they got all this.
The Matanuska Valley.
Matanuska.
Yeah.
They got produce.
They have
huge.
Right.
They got potatoes that look like watermelon.
And cabbages as big as.
That's because there's so much sunlight.
As a card table.
That's because it's up to
24 hours of sun in summer.
Yeah. Sun's
so if you got a 3-month growing period, fantastic. And if you happen to be somebody who's involved with
Mm.
marijuana. They grow a marijuana up there called Matanuska Thunder.
Matanuska
Valley. Because Matanuska Valley.
Yeah,
that's the fertile part of Alaska.
Yeah.
Not much of it, but it is there.
But it's very
But that stuff grows under the 24-hour sunshine.
Yeah.
And the growing period is just enough. You got these giant plants.
A pot.
They're tremendous.
Yeah, really
powerful stuff.
Right.
So that's
That
Alaska.
is a great appeal to a lot of people. Anyway, I went up there and I was going to go, and I was all in. I spent the whole summer sort of out, exploring. And they have things like bears.
Yes.
They have things, and I'm from the city. I'm not, but I was going to I'd read a lot of Thoreau about Mother Nature and all that, and everything. And I went and I'd sleep on the ground. I was sleeping on the ground. And catching fish out of the river,
right.
Valderie, and, and I went and I finally ended up going up to Mount McKinley. And Mount McKinley, then you'd have to go on a little road, and there wasn't a hell of a lot there in terms of, that's 22,000 feet or something. It's huge, Mount McKinley. And they had almost like a little stand. There was hardly any tourist or anything there, but it was a major feature. And I walked up, and I had gym shoes. I was stupid is what it was. I was from the city, and I walked up the mountain, and I got up the mountain, and I didn't tell anybody I was there, and it was beautiful weather. It's lovely, like you said, all the time, beautiful weather. And the trees and the antelope, and I'm singing Valderie, and all that kind of stuff. You understand?
Yeah.
Stupid is what it was.
Oh, it was lovely.
Oh no, I'm a stupid city kid.
No, it was young and beautiful.
Young and stupid, yeah. But anyway, I get up there, and it got worse. And everything was there, and I was like 3 or 4 days walking up, got above where the trees were, and it got up to where there was like
tundra.
Not only tundra, it got to be where there were, what do you call it, when there's all ice? Glaciers. Glaciers, it was just ice.
Yep.
And I'm walking along, and I'm just singing Valderie, and this is so beautiful nature, and Thoreau.
And then the weather changed on you.
It did.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was horrible.
I saw where you were going there.
It came.
Lucky you're still alive.
Yes, sir. I did. And it was a lesson I wished I would never have had to fight.
I've seen that on a dime, the weather would change like that.
No, but it would, and it would not. And it was just rain, snow, sleet, hail, and nobody knew I was there.
Wow.
I was stupid. That's what I was. I was stupid. I was really. I won't
argue on that one.
Stuck up on the mountain, and I finally had to just go, and I had gym shoes on. I didn't have boots and things like you have to have, And I had to come down this river, and I had to follow the river that I had gone up there, because the river is coming down, and I had to follow it. Hopefully that was the right bend in the river that I had, because. If I had not been able to, and it seemed, I had gone about 4 days walk up the mountain, beyond the trees. You know what I mean?
And the weather changed on you.
No, it's like stupid. There's
somebody should have warned you.
Somebody should have warned me against being me.
Absolutely.
No, that's what I'm saying. And I got there, and it was so horrible. When I got down, I finally. I had to follow the river down. You had to follow the river down, because you're following the river coming down, and the snow and the hail and the sleet and the wind and all. Can you get the picture?
I've seen that.
Make a movie out of it?
Have
you ever had such a thing?
I was caught on a few of them.
This was really terrible. Well, that was because I was suffering, and so I'm particularly sensitive to the remembrance of it. And it goes, and I finally got down, and then I finally got down. And I finally there was a little camp there. I think I slept 3 days in this place where I was able to, and then when I got down, and this sounds stupid. Now, what I should have learned a lesson, right? I should have learned a lesson to resort to, what's the lesson to be learned is to respect nature.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
And not be carefree. And not be Valkyrie and doing all kinds of things, like that. I didn't. You know what I did? I got to be said, all I want is cement. All I want to have is cement and city. I want the city and civilization. And I learned the wrong lesson, you understand? Yeah. And there's a lesson that could be learned by that, right?
Well, the lesson was nature is great, just understand its ways, respect its ways.
Well, I got the idea that Mother Nature was a stupid bitch. That's what I got to be, where I did not trust Mother Nature, and I wanted to get back to a city. Anyway, enough of all that about me and everything. But so you got the book and everything like that. Tell us about the book, please.
All right. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go veering.
Oh no, very.
Don't go
I
up
enjoyed
the mountain
that
at Mount McKinley. Promise me you won't do it. At your age. I was only 21 or something.
Right. No,
I can't believe how stupid.
Your lesson there is an important one.
But I was stupid.
Right. Well,
maybe
you were young.
All the young men out there, don't push it too hard when you get up to the top of a glacier. Anyway, that's a little lesson, right?
Yeah, you should have been warned.
I should have been warned, yeah.
Okay, the book. The book does cover, we talked about, I've had a very varied life.
You have, I know.
I've lived in this kind of society that's diametrically opposed to that kind.
Yeah.
I've met these kind of people,
Good.
totally educated, and I've worked with oil field workers from Oklahoma and Louisiana who barely finished grade school.
You could write a book.
So I could. So I've lived in different worlds.
Yeah, that's good.
I really lived in them.
That is a good lesson.
I didn't just visit them.
Yeah,
I lived in them.
Right.
So in this book,
and soak them up.
In this book, there's this art, this dance. This woman has a dance company.
Yeah.
She has mystical and spiritual values, and she wants to do this performance. That's why it's called a performance, in which she unites different religious dances. You know, there's the Hindu dances. There's the Hasidic Jews do a lot of dancing. The Pentecostalists, the Christians, they speak in tongues and they kind of dance and swoon and all that. So she combined these dances using Gregorian chants while Sufis are dancing. And so she's trying to unite the religions, and her mission is to try to elevate humanity.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was the performance. But in the process of it, she has to finance it. So she's out in the Hamptons. She has to raise money. Hamptons. So she raises money from. Where's the money? It's bankers and millionaires, and she has connections in those areas. So she gets involved with this gentleman from a big banking family called Henry Mellington. All right,
Mellington. So that's a fictional character.
So she finds a fictional character, definitely a fictional character.
Yeah.
So
but it's got an interesting
name.
It
got it. So she gets involved with, discovers this is not for her. So it so turns out that he gets rejected, and he's very vengeful. And they have connections in Washington, all kind of power and stuff like that.
With real power.
And at the same time, then she gets involved with a very dashing, funny, interesting, and rather sinister guy, but also a combination of sinister and kind of noble. You could have both.
Interesting, huh?
And that's the type of guy he is. And due to various kinds of circumstances, she gets involved with him.
Yeah.
And there's
intimately,
but it's a very passionate love affair. It's described graphically.
Yeah.
And
you described her graphically.
Her and him and what goes on with them.
But it's all conjured up in your mind.
Yeah, but it is two different worlds.
Yeah.
They're two different worlds. One is an artistic, sort of upper class, cultured world, and his is he comes from talk about street cred. It comes from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
Right.
And he worked his way up the way he circumstances allowed him to do it. And he became the owner of a very lovely restaurant called the Villa Da Vinci. Great Italian restaurant.
This is all fiction. Total
This is
fiction.
all fiction.
But it's based on certain people you've been
Right.
aware of. Yeah.
Definitely
Okay.
on types of people I've known. So their love affair is very powerful. And the bottom line is that that Andre Melleton finds a way to get his revenge, and they pay a price for that illicit affair of these two different worlds colliding. And there's a mystical and spiritual, the whole question, very significant questions about,
who's got the movie rights? Who's got the movie rights?
Anybody got a checkbook got the movie rights.
Yeah. But it would make a hell of a movie, wouldn't it, in your mind, right?
Well,
and it's all conjuring on your own part. Is any of it relating to people you actually knew?
Some of them are based on characters I knew, yes.
But do you conjure?
Well, any fiction writer has to.
I guess that's true.
You have
by
to.
definition.
Yeah, it's not biography. It's a story, but the story are usually, you draw from your life and you draw from people you know.
For a lot of people's lives, they're very dull, I think, don't you?
Well, I've discovered
they don't get stuck on top of mountains.
No, they don't. I've discovered something, though, Harold, over the years. If you look very, very, very carefully, even in a dull life, there's drama.
Okay.
Look carefully.
Yeah.
They outwardly look very dull, like nothing's happening, but nobody goes through life without nothing happening. You get sick, you get married, you have children, you've struggled to find a job.
And
everybody has a drama in it. If you look carefully, you'll find it.
Yeah. And those kind of things are worthwhile. Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect at this time?
All right. I said we would get into some political stuff, and
well, that might have to do with some political stuff.
It would. Yeah. No, I'm very, very, very worried. How much time do we have?
We have about 25 minutes.
All right. I'm very profoundly worried about where we're at, and it's not just the Trump White House. Yeah. The Trump White House is only the cherry on top of the cake. The cake is what's happened to American society. Okay. You don't throw up a leader like that by accident. Like Germany did not throw up Hitler
or Mussolini in Italy.
Right, had it not been for the defeat of the First World War and inflation that went crazy, people were starving in Germany, and you got a demigod madman who utilized racial things to gain power. Well, that's happening in America now.
Well, that's what political things can do, or political's quality.
Right, dictators and really dangerous people.
Or even, what about leaders? Leaders have the ability to lead one way or lead another, and that kind of thing.
And they all
similar for evil or for good.
Right,
and think
yes,
similar
for both.
Psychological qualities and skill sets.
Right. For both. It could go this way or that way.
For both good and bad?
Yes.
Well, now that really gives it, all kinds of themes on the human condition.
Yes.
Right? So are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect?
At the moment right now, I'm worried.
I am too.
I'm very worried because the things we really have to be dealt with are not being dealt with. What's being dealt with are illusions, and false problems when we have really major, big, overwhelming ones.
What are the big, major, overwhelming problems that you ought to be brought up?
I was on the subway the other day, and the train was crawling along.
Yeah.
I use the L line, which goes to Brooklyn, goes to Williamsburg and Lower Manhattan frequently. They're going to close that tunnel down shortly.
Well, sometimes it's going to be
it's going to cost. Right, it's going to cost $450 million to fix one tunnel. Yeah. You know why that tunnel's messed up?
I do not know.
Sandy hurricane flooded the subway system.
Well, whose fault is that?
global warming's fault.
Okay, you got a warming thing for that. Okay.
And you think it's not affecting us? Anyone going to Brooklyn next year, anyone going to Brooklyn or from Brooklyn to Manhattan next year when they close that tunnel is being affected directly by global warming. So that's what destroyed that tunnel.
So you think global warming is a major problem confronting
Absolutely.
humanity, which is not being dealt with adequately
getting
by
worse.
leadership?
Getting worse.
You think so?
If you're scientifically minded, the evidence is overwhelming.
Well, they seem to be.
And if you're a political hack or just all you care about is your own ego, money, or whatever the hell it is you care about, you don't want to look at that, fine. But if you care about really knowing empirically, through scientific method, what is really going on here, getting worse, Harold.
Don't you think?
Sandy's not the last one.
Well, no.
There are many more. Puerto Rico hasn't even recovered yet.
I know, it's horrible.
We just went through something in North Carolina that's drastic. Out in California, there are forest fires all over the place. There are droughts developing. This stuff is not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Okay, what's the solution? Or is there a solution, or who's representing this? What are the political or economic or intellectual forces on this particular issue that you can see United States and the world?
Whatever will crack through complacency.
Complacency
And
in favor of
look, I go to the
expediency.
supermarket, I want a bottle of quart of milk, I'll get a quart of milk. I want some money, I go down to the ATM machine and put in my card, out comes the cash. What's wrong with the world? Nothing. I turn the water on, out of the faucet comes water. I click on the lights, the lights goes on. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong.
I don't quite know what you're getting at with that.
But something is wrong.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at, Those things are all to the right.
Right. It's all good. I'm glad all of that stuff
and
is
there's
there.
Progress.
But it's an illusion to think that we're all secure. Listen, my bank account's okay, I have money, and I turn on the water's there. It's an illusion to think that that's eternal. That's a given, and you can rely on that forever, because there are these. Because, like I said, if you go to Brooklyn next year on the L line, you're not going to be able to go there because global warming wrecked the tunnel, and that's just the beginning.
Right. Now, okay.
So people going from Brooklyn back and forth at that time, they may begin. Their complacency will be a little bit disturbed because they're going to be inconvenienced going back. All of Lower Manhattan is going to be inconvenienced by the rebuilding of that tunnel. If somebody just makes the connection, that tunnel is a wreck because global warming brought us Sandy on a scale that we never saw before. It flooded the subway system. All over the subway system, they have to replace. It's years later, and they have to replace.
Are you sure?
It's affecting the subway system.
It can be created. It can be attributed to global warming.
Yes.
You sure?
Absolutely.
We know that without a doubt. There are people who deny the fact of global warming. They will say it just happens once in a while, and it happens, and we just have to learn to live with the varieties of Mother Nature that sometimes goes overboard.
People deny or believe all kinds of things.
Because it's inconvenient, maybe, to a lot of things people want to do.
There are people who deny the Holocaust, like it didn't happen. Some people say we didn't go to the moon. That's a lie.
Right. Well, but that's...
People believe all kinds of things. But how do you know what to believe? There's a system to try. It takes a little discipline. You got to have a little courage of mind, and you could get a little bit to what's really going on. Yes, the subway system going to Brooklyn, which is going to be closed down because of that tunnel. That was global warming that made that happen.
Is this
anytime you're going to Brooklyn or back in that period, and you're angry, pissed off, and you're cursing? Remember, global warming. You're suffering for it.
You seem to have a particular brief against this thing called global warming, which a lot of the intellectual and the leadership element of the society agrees with you, don't you think? But they seem not to be able to come around to practical means for actually addressing it in ways that can be dealt with in a political way that takes care of all the various elements of of interest in the society.
People have.
It's very worrying.
It is worrying.
Yeah.
People have
and all this money spending on military
right
is really off-putting.
It could be spent much better, that's for sure. There's something describes that. People have said if you take a frog, you put him in cold water.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You've heard this, and
course.
slowly warm up the pot.
Well,
he'll sit in the pot and sit in the pot
cooks.
and get boiled to death.
Right.
If you put him in the hot pot, he'll jump right out.
Yeah.
We're like that
relevant?
frog.
You think
that complacency is that frog.
In the water.
He's complacent.
Well, then the people who are in charge of the society that influence how hot that water is can just be satisfied as long as you only bring it up reasonably.
Well, a lot of the people
at a time.
They fool themselves. A lot of people in power or what have you.
Yeah.
They're paid off with great power to ignore it because
Or
they're
to
invested in fracking or whatever it is, and they're making money off of it. They don't. People like in the old tobacco industry used to sell cigarettes up, left, right, and center, and they were killing people. They were making money. They did not see or feel any moral connection. They saw the bottom line on the balance sheet.
Economic questions or that are important ones to keep in mind in terms of human society within the natural order. It is important to have economic issues dealt with by the political leadership.
Oh yeah,
it is important.
Very important.
And you'd want to try and increase the value of the system under which people are told to live by the political forces that control the economy and so forth, if you could. And it's being ignored because of special interests that have not the ability to see that.
The human mind has a great ability to fool itself. And to see its advantages as the world's advantages, not to look beyond that.
You get stuck on a mountaintop thinking Mother Nature is very, very benevolent.
It was going to take care of you.
I had learned a lesson, in that. I mean, I really learned my lesson there in a way. No, but you're talking about big issues on the world scale. I ask a question often of people: are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect?
I am in.
You've got wisdom.
I'm in a worried period. I'm worried. It's not the breaking through to complacency is not happening fast enough. The scientists are doing their job. They are gathering the data. They are not fooling around. They are doing the job. You take a look at that data.
Is there something
it is convincing.
But other than the global warming, that's one issue. There's other issues.
Many
like
other.
The economy and things like that. And people are doing well now. And people are, the stock market's going
the
up
stock market's doing well, but is the average person doing well? The upper 1% are getting most of the money.
No, I think a lot of people are. A lot of people, unemployment is down, and people have jobs, and they did this, and that would be under our current president, Mr. Trump. He claims that the things they've done, they had a tax cut, and they had certain economic policies that they've encouraged to happen, and he claims that things are getting better for the people of the United States.
You have to remember when...
And a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, well, they do, but when Barack Obama came into office, the economy collapsed. Keep that in mind, 2008.
Well,
there was almost a semi-depression at that moment.
But you're talking about Barack Obama. Is not Donald Trump.
Well, hold on.
Barack Obama,
whatever he was, Barack Obama had to deal with the banking system about to collapse. And to his credit, he kept it going. And he started a recovery. If you look at the charts of unemployment, was seriously awful, and he slowly brought down the unemployment figures. If you look at the graph, going up until now, Trump comes in and takes advantage of that.
Well, no, but
it's the same chart that Barack Obama started. He just rode it.
Yeah, but there's continuity between one administration with another.
Well,
and there's a certain historical continuity.
But the economy was set into motion in that direction before Trump. He takes the credit, of course. And even with the stock market booming and the unemployment figures down, the average wealth and value of the average American family, the average, is less than it was 20 years ago.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give you, I've seen the statistics.
Well, there are statistics. You can prove anything with statistics. You know that. You know
Yeah,
that old
there are
song,
lies,
you know,
damn lies,
and then
statistics.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's right. And you got the differences. And
Well,
everything
so
like
we
that.
won't get lost in those weeds.
No.
At any rate, don't be complacent like the frog. This economic development is very old. If you look at economic history, booms don't last forever.
No, and nor do depressions.
Right.
Or down, up, and
Right.
there's cycles.
It's
and
up and down.
Yeah.
We're in the up, and the down, sooner or later, will come.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, there's
it's economic history.
Yeah, well,
there's no way out of it.
You would be what they would call a leftist person. You're probably thinking in terms of Franklin Roosevelt as having set up some things to help the least advantaged people, as he did. And these kind of things is something that's part of the
Harold,
national treasure, or the national history and so forth.
You
But there have been others as
think
well.
of what you and I life are. We're older people, senior citizens,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
What would our life be without Social Security?
Well, Social Security is a big thing, yeah.
That's what FDR did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but there would be people who think that was just a giveaway. And there are people who do not think Social Security is a good idea, particularly, because you should have good jobs and get good jobs and
Harold,
let them live a life of by their own devices and let them prove themselves and make the world free for people to be,
Sure.
seeking their own interests and so forth.
There are people who believe the moon is made out of green cheese.
It isn't?
What can I what can I do about it?
I thought it was blue cheese.
It ain't my fault.
You got to get your
The
color.
blue moon.
You haven't
Yeah,
got your color
maybe
scale.
it is blue
You haven't
cheese.
got your color scale right, Kyle. It's
Right.
blue cheese. I
Right,
think,
maybe it is blue
anyway,
cheese.
yeah, but it's an interesting time. I asked you before, I don't know if I didn't, I would. There's a great capability technologically for man to affect the environment of his own species and other species and so forth increasingly and everything. And one would ask, there's destructive capabilities that are newly Promethean on the destructive side, including weapon systems that by scientific research, you can find it, there's all places, that the things that exist mostly within, and those weapons that exist and the tremendous amount of money put into military expenditures are mostly geared toward military systems that are increasing burden upon the national economy and so forth. But the weapon systems that do exist, particularly of the United States of America, in very singular terms, the Trident submarines, fleets.
Yep.
That's the largest flight. That's the largest threat on a species level that there are, and there are many, many signs that have been able to project that they alone would be able, if they were unleashed in a spasm
Wipe
of hatred.
around everything.
It's just there's a capability. Okay, there's a capability. If they were unleashed, that it would mean the end of our species.
Right.
We couldn't do that any time in the past.
No.
We couldn't. We never had that capability. Then on the other hand, there's a chance that we have a new capability of providing for everybody in a decent way, and everybody can have a good standard of living and so forth in such a way that would be almost liberating beyond what the historical pattern had been.
Right.
And that's also available to us.
Right.
And those are the two things that
Which
are
way are
available.
we gonna go?
We're born into that kind of a world.
Right.
2,000, we've been here 200,000 years, and we're in a unique situation off a 200,000 year sojourn coming out of Africa.
Right.
And we're at a point of major transformation,
It
and
is-
it doesn't seem to be brought up in those stark terms, or maybe that's just over-hyping the idea of this being this is a unique moment. It's not like just another period of history that can be measured in those
Well,
historical
that's what I'm
terms.
saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
Harold, that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
The complacency is not allowing us to see it. Society, I don't mean you and me.
But do
I
you
mean
think
complacency is not allowing society to see it clearly for what it really is.
Well, no, well, it never has been. I mean, you could go back to 1940, we couldn't have done it.
No.
Or there's a certain period. But that is the case now on both cases, both vectors, destruction and liberation. We got a
Right.
capability
Right.
where everybody can win.
Right.
Instead of it being zero sum, for one to win, somebody else has to lose,
Right.
and all of that kind of thing that people think. We have a capability of liberating the whole human society within an ecological order and having a gigantic kind of improvement of things, or we got the ability to destroy the entire species.
Yes. Well,
I mean, that's unique. And is it brought up clear enough in the
it's not.
consciousness of the human
it should be front and center in everybody's mind. Everybody should be made aware of it.
Yeah, that's beyond one thing, like global warming. That's
Yeah.
one part
Well, that's
of it.
one
But
big
it's
part.
part
There
of
are
a
other
larger
parts
part
of
the
it.
issue, yeah.
You know the physicist Stephen Hawking.
Yes, of course.
He
I've read
said toward the end of his life that he was wondering whether the human race had more than 100 more years to survive.
Well, I don't know if it would be
Hawkins said that.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't say that.
No.
And when Hawkins talks, I listen.
Well, he doesn't
Hawkins
talk
brought
much
up
now.
a number
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah,
Of course, the atomic
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
the ecological thing.
Well, there's other.
He also brought up AI, artificial intelligence.
That's coming strong.
He was very frightened of it.
Yeah, right.
He
So am
thought,
I.
yeah, okay. So those
Yeah.
are three
but
areas.
It also has tremendous liberating capability because it's not like it's all just one and then the others you just drift. You've got one you can liberate or you can annihilate.
All right,
That's the two.
It's like this. I have a knife in my hand and I'm cutting a salami. You know?
Well, I've done that.
Nice.
I've done that, yeah.
Salami tastes good.
Yeah,
Knife
it
is
does.
very helpful.
Yeah.
Then I have a knife in my hand and I plunge it in somebody's belly. Which way are you going to use the knife? Which way are we going to use this technology? Is it going to? Are we going to plunge it in somebody's belly, or are we going to cut a nice salami sandwich?
Yeah, but is that just woolly thinking to think about the fact that all you need to do is make sure you get a right tax cut that gets the economy going, and everybody gets a job, and they get money, and they can be helpful, and they can, and the normal way of thinking about the order of things.
There has to be a moral and intellectual awakening.
We didn't have to have a moral or intellectual awakening in the past. Well, let's
we
say
need it now
18th
desperately.
Century when we were going across the
Oh, they
plains.
tried.
No.
I mean, Christ tried to do it in the Sermon on the Mount.
Well, that's
It's
going
been
back even
tried.
further than
It's
the
been
18th
tried.
century.
Right now, it's not just something nice to think. Right now, it's a necessity. If we're going to head off disaster, that has to happen.
Not only head off disaster, allow the incoming of a
better.
It's called in evolution when the new appears. It's called punctuated equilibrium. That you get to a point where there's something new comes.
Right.
Like we were Homo erectus for a long time, and then there came Homo sapiens.
Right.
We came as a species. You get a new species. You get a new way of being.
Yeah, we're at that point. Either something new or.
But we don't hear that being talked about.
No, we
much
don't.
in that,
We're
that,
talking
in
about
those stark terms.
To our credit, we're talking about it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what they should do, I think everybody should get this book called The Performance. What do you think? You think we could get a plug-in for The Performance? Would you mind if we get that in?
Yeah, there it is. It's available on Amazon.com. Click, you can get it. It's not expensive. I made it particularly inexpensive because I want it read. Yeah. I'm not interested in money anymore. I'm 82 years old. That's not the thing.
Listen, all this
I want
talk,
it read.
All this arty talk. Who's got the movie rights, I want to know. How have you sold out the movie rights to? That's what we want to know. Who's going to make the movie, brother? Who have you sold out to in the movie making thing?
Anybody that got a checkbook and my telephone number.
Well, that's getting it to be what's practical. It's what's able to be seen economically and so forth. So that's an important thing. Yeah. Well, anyway, it's good to be. It's good to have met you. That's really good. And I think you're a bon vivant, and I think you're a person that's of great, the kind of people that are really make the world a better place to be, the artistic community. And I thank you very much. I agree with you. A whole lot of what you're thinking about. It's an amazing time to be alive.
It is.
It could have been the 18th century so dull. Don't you think? Or is that?
Well, it had its moments.
You think so,
Sure.
yeah?
Every age does. But right now
What
it's
about
particularly weird.
What about the 2nd century? What about 100,000 years ago?
Oh well, listen.
Sitting
If you were wandering in the wilderness and a woolly mammoth with its tusks came running at, that was kind of dramatic.
Yeah, damn right. And tiger tooth. They have
tiger tooth. Yeah,
teeth.
That was a little dramatic. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, nature.
Yeah.
Nature
No,
is,
being alive is
very
dramatic.
Cruel maiden, you know. I mean, I don't think nature's some wonderful. Are you a nature lover?
Yes.
I like birds and stuff.
But
I think nature's a sort of a blind.
Like most things.
I don't want to use the term, but you could use the term nature's ignorant bitch in a certain sense. You know, I don't think you can trust it to nature. Or can you? Or can we?
A certain
Just
thing.
try to get back to nature. I think we have to transcend.
I think it would help if we got back to our original human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Our original
You think we
human
want to
nature.
get it?
But the old hunter and gatherers in the wilderness.
I don't think we want to get back.
Well,
I wouldn't want to get back here. We're going around picking up a little carrion that's been left by the tiger. And the tigers used to eat us regularly as prey, like rabbits, because they had great big teeth and they had great big fast moving and they could bring us down. I don't think we want to get back to that.
But we had hunting circles that held them off.
Well,
they didn't have such a bad life.
Okay, well, whatever it is, we agree that it's a very interesting time to be alive, and one of the most interesting things you can do is get in touch with the things intellect. And the intellectual community maybe is falling down on the job
a little bit. It is
falling
down.
You think it is?
Yes.
It's trying, but it's being
not doing well.
It's being confronted with economic and political realities that make it very, very difficult to
There are a lot of things eating away at that it's not doing its job.
That's right. Yeah.
We're trying.
Mm-hmm.
You and I on this conversation, we're trying, but it's feeble. The voice that we're expressing here is feeble out there. It's not strong.
My dog is trying. I know that, and particularly my cat is really interested in getting far better conditions in that feeding bowl. You know. So anyway. Thank you very, very much for going, and it's such a great pleasure. The beginning of a beautiful friendship. Okay.
Okay?
We've
had a friendship for a while.
No, not
but a beautiful one.
Let's renew it. Your pleasure at his perception. We give you his name. There you see it, Bennett KremenI, and the book is The Performance, and it's recommended by one and all. And who wrote that review? I read a review.
Oh, his name was Bill Banyan.
It was beautiful, and it was tremendous praise. Yeah. That must have made your heart jolly pop. It's good to read a good review, isn't it?
Yes.
Is it better to read a good review or to hear some bad review about the world condition or something? That would get us off on another philosophical. Let's not try. Thank you for coming back again next time, and thanks for coming in very much.
Okay, thank you, Harold.
My pleasure. Okay. Well, there we go. So
16 seconds.
15 seconds even. Okay, we got 50. You do a soft shoe. Can you do a soft shoe? We got 15 seconds. Quick. I'm going to do Frankenstein.
Well done. Maybe you'll get an Emmy.
No, I'm going to shake my fist.